get nuts! Come on, let's get nuts.
Are you're from London originally? You're not?
I'm from London.
Okay.
Then I spent from, I don't know, from 76 till 97, I was in Ireland. So I was brought up at a secondary school in Ireland. I went to uh, what was called the Institute of Education, or Bolton Street in Dublin, to study engineering, and finally finished off with a postgraduate diploma in project management in Trinity College, Dublin.
All right. Okay.
So I knew the city well, mended a lot of things in the capacity of an engineer contractor, and got to do work for like embassies and one of the political parties even. I used to look after the maintenance on their building. I think Fine Gael. So I hope you're not a Fianna Fáil man, and that would upset you implicitly.
I'm neither now, to be honest. My trust in politicians in Ireland is at an all-time low. Do you know, actually, it's funny. I used to listen to this fella Earl Nightingale a lot, and I don't know if you ever come across him. He recorded. I suppose he was like nearly like an original podcaster back in the 60s, and he recorded something called The Strangest Secret. And I suppose in a nutshell, the strangest secret was that we become what we think about. And I kind of that kind of ties into, I suppose, the manifestation stuff, and it does play into the simulated reality stuff a lot. And how did you first come into your thinking about our reality being a simulation?
How did I come across it? Well, I was mentally programmed to have an interest in things you might say spiritual, or to do with how the mind operates. And what happened next was I was trying to learn about this stuff, read about it in books, and I came across a book on self-hypnosis. And in roughly the second to last page, it mentioned something called astral projection, and how you could get your consciousness out of your body, and you could bump into some deceased relatives, which is always useful. And you could also bump into guiding spirits who would start to tell you all sorts of useful things. And as I then pursued that and learnt how to do it, I did indeed bump into what we'd call guiding spirits. And then they were able to train me in lots of these things, teach me how to refine the techniques, get it a lot better, teach me how to train others. So I would channel training sessions and help other people. And I got to sit in on a lot of training sessions on how you made astral projection work. And as a consequence of doing that, I got to see how we are indeed living in a weird kind of simulation. So that's then how I came to write a couple of books on the subject that actually explain what the mechanism is, and the rather unusual world you run into when you go out of body. So does that give you an insight into how I got into this?
Yeah, and I mean, when you first attempted to practice this, did it take you long to get results? Because I know that this is kind of it's strange information for the average person. Not many people are conscious, I suppose, of this idea that you can leave your body and travel to other locations.
Well, let's start off with some of the basic thing that most people experience quite regularly, and that is when you fall asleep, your spirit body slightly detaches from the physical body. And when that happens, you'll get all sorts of little strange indicators, such as a sensation of weightlessness. But for most people, they feel like they're half falling asleep, then they slip out of their bodies slightly, and they think they might have tripped over or falling or something like that. And that is an example of just coming slightly out of body and surviving it. So, in fact, most people have experienced moments of this already. They've just not recognized it for what it is.
Is there a relationship between lucid dreaming then and astral projection?
There's a tremendous overlap between the two, and these things operate in levels. So if you're having a very low level astral projection, you are going into a little dream world where things are happening to you and you're carried around in the dream. You are, in essence, a small part of your normal personality at that point. You're like a fragment of your normal self, which doesn't question the dream to any great extent, and you get carried along by it. If you wake up a little bit more, you'll find you can start to manipulate the dream, but you're still essentially in a human type world. If you go higher up in that, you can ultimately start to bump into your guidance team reaching down to you. And again, it's a relatively lucid world. You can control it. But if you keep going, you eventually have to dispose of your human ego and personality, and you can go up much higher and higher and become essentially a formless being. So does that give you some sort of a sense of some of the different layers that people
Yeah,
might wonder about?
yeah. Like I have experienced. I've attempted it a few times. Lucid dreaming, and I have I have had very brief lucid dreams where I get too excited and I realize, oh my God, I'm dreaming. This is the dream, and you can physically see things start to change. The whole dream starts to glow a little bit.
Yeah.
But I got a little bit excited, and I wake up from the dream. Then my most recent one, I heard you can fly. So when I realized I was dreaming, I decided to shoot up into the air, and I actually got a little bit frightened. I started getting a fear of heights from it. It was so real, and again woke up from that. But what was your experience like when you first started to meet your spirit guides, and were any of them related to you in any way?
Well, what I found essentially was that the guides I was working with were a bunch of characters who I had no obvious relationship to in the earthly level. But if I wanted to go looking for people or beings who I was related to, they were there to be found. But I was on a path where I was working with teams of characters who didn't really live in this artificial reality.
Right.
So, so that's what I'd say. And also worth mentioning in this, I had the pleasure of meeting my children before they were ever born,
I heard you saying that before. Yeah, that's
before they were
interesting.
ever conceived. And uh, this was a wonderful thing because I got a sense of the kind of personalities they'd be bringing to this world.
Yeah, interesting.
So, for example, my son explained to me that in this world he'd be a slow learner. So, many years later, after he finally got born, when the pediatrician, the child doctor, says to me, Mr. McCready, I'm sorry to say your child has autism and he's going to be a slow learner. I said back to his face, I said, it's all right. He told me years ago, it's not a worry.
God. Yeah, that must have been a great comfort to you, though.
Well, what happens is that there's a lot of beings coming here that bring a lot of non-earthly aspects to them, and we're getting more and more of them in the current world. So there'll be more and more kids with autism because they're bringing in qualities into this world where they barely fit in.
Why is that, do you think?
Because the earth is going through a process of change and it needs some fresh blood to mix the whole thing up.
Okay, okay. Um, so you've said before that we're in a reality that we've engineered ourselves. Um, I suppose where do animals come into that? Do animals pr contribute to the creation of the illusion?
Well, to really answer this one, we just need to step back one moment and look at the overall mechanism. And what you'll find is when you start doing out of body work, you can find many spirit guides, helpful people, relatives, and things like that. You'll also find the animals knocking around. Uh, so I still get visited by my former pet dogs. They come and say hello to me now and again when I'm out for a walk and things like that. But as you go up, everything starts to blend together. Instead of there being a lot of separation, we all get mixed into a oneness. And finally, when you go up high enough, there's only one of you. There's just one being, and that has split itself into everything else you're experiencing. So then when you're talking about where do the animals come from, or even where do the trees come from, you're always looking at an aspect of yourself that's been split up. So if you were like the head of an octopus, the animals, the trees, and the other people around you would be the tentacles or legs of that octopus that have come down. They're still part of the same body, but they're essentially joined together.
So, I mean, how can we use astral projection and some of these things to improve our lives and to maybe get from where we are to where we would like to be in life?
Well, there's a question. When you're saying where you'd like to be in life, what on earth do you mean by that?
Yeah, I know. Like, I only heard someone there recently saying, imagine where you want to be.
Yeah.
He was actually saying, do it when you're in your bed, and when you're falling asleep, imagine that you're in the bed that you want to be in the house that you want to be in, living the life you want to live. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, I'm kind of happy in the bed that I'm in at the moment. So it's difficult for me, my wife now would kill me, and she'd be like, no, I'd like a bigger house, and but I find it difficult to imagine being in a better place to get myself to that better place. Does that make sense?
Well, that makes sense. And what you're saying there is you've got a really good acceptance of where you are and you're enjoying the life you're experiencing right now. So that seems like you're on a really
Well,
good path.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm enjoying it. I mean, I'd like a few more quid in my bank account, to be honest. But yeah, other than that, I don't have too many complaints, I guess.
Well, you've got a very positive attitude. You make the best of things, and you're always trying to find the learning or the insights into any situation you found yourself in.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't particularly like getting annoyed and upset, so even though it does happen to you, you work at snapping out of it quite rapidly because you just don't want to stay there.
Yeah, I try not to let the mind spiral in a negative way, because it's very easy.
Yeah.
You could get into the car on the way home from work and no one talks to you, nothing happens to you, and half an hour later you're even more pissed off when you get in the door than you were when you started heading home. So yeah, I try to control the negative thoughts. All right. What was I going to say? So if for a first timer and a beginner was listening to this and they were thinking, all right, I would like to astral project out of my body tonight, and I would like to go somewhere. What kind of tips would you have for them as a beginner?
Well, I'll run through. There are two main approaches, and there's a third dynamic to all of this that people try, and that is they really want to learn how to do this. So they end up taking various forms of drugs or hallucinogenic substances. And I simply say to people, just don't do that. You don't need to. So, for example, hello, John. You've made it finally to.
Made it. I was listening, guys. I was listening.
So, so what happened is people take various substances to try and get this to work. And what they're doing is you're poisoning the parts of your brain that are holding you in place. And if you poison the parts of your brain that hold you in place, you will get results. You will get to see an amazing godly presence, which actually is ultimately you. But it's not a very good way to go. It's not very sustainable. And taking strange frog poisons in trips to South America or ayahuasca or things of that sort ultimately damage you. So I'd say try not to go that route. Now,
Okay.
the main two ways of getting astral projection to work are, number one, can you fall asleep but simultaneously stay awake? And that's what I tried to do at the beginning, and it's really, really hard to do.
Yeah, I've tried it.
Mm.
You will get results. In my early days of doing this, I found, yeah, I could get a result. I could come a little bit out of body. I could leap out of my bedroom window, and if I believed in gravity, I'd go smashing into the ground. And if I didn't believe in gravity, I would hover and do things like that. And I could go up a little bit. You can essentially move around your local environment. Uh, but you're still in what I call a heavy astral projection, where you're self-associating as a human form. And your human form is a little bit like an aeroplane flying around Earth. It can fly around in the local human atmosphere of Earth, but it can't go into space. An aeroplane doesn't operate as a spacecraft. So you're limited to your locality, and that's what we call a heavy astral projection. The other way to go, which is what I teach people a lot to do, involves getting them to breathe properly and smile. And if I can get you doing that, your brain will stop hanging on to you and holding your consciousness here, and you'll suddenly shift over to being more a sort of light being, or like a sort of wispy cloud of energy. And when you do that, you can get up and out. So what we do is get people to breathe nicely in a smiling way. Their energy system really starts to flow. They feel an energy flowing through their physical bodies. And then I get them to transition between saying you're a body feeling the energy to you're the energy passing through the body. And when you do that, you can come up and out, and you can start to explore literally anywhere. So does that give you a sense of how the basics work?
Yeah, it's quite fascinating, actually.
It's amazing because I know, Niall, you've dabbled with lucid dreaming before. I really have to try starting with that, because I might have a random thought. I'd love to start doing some lucid dreaming, but then I would forget to think about it before I go to sleep, and then there's another. That's a night wasted. I'm like, I planned to do lucid dreaming last night. Oh, there's a night gone. How would you, like, I've heard through a lot of your interviews so far, David. So you were talking about us as humans, we're kind of stuck ourselves between this 3D dimension that we're in and this physicality, or this physical universe that surrounds us. How can we start to change our psyche to even just start to lean into lucid dreaming and start to kind of bring these things on a lot more easier than it would happen? How does that?
All right. A bit like the earlier explanation I asked today, I've got to bring us back to some basics for a moment. You're only experiencing being your human personalities. It's a bit like you're in a computer game and you've become the equivalent of Laura Croft in Tomb Raider. You have dropped into a personality or an ego, and now you're experiencing it. It's got all its thinking, its behavior, its emotions. That's what you've plugged into. And amazingly as well, rather like Laura Croft in Tomb Raider, there's multiple versions of her. People are playing parallel versions of her. So you're playing John in this particular lifetime. You're having a go at playing John, making the most of it. But you're not John. You never were John. You've come from elsewhere, and now you're in the game. So when you're talking about controlling a lot of this, you were mentioning playing with it at the margins of lucid dreaming, but you've really got to come out a lot further to make a difference. You've got to get out to a level where you've rediscovered that you chose to do it. Because right now people would say to you in this world, you chose to be in this lifetime, and you kind of go along with the idea, but you've no memory of it. You don't have a conscious sense of I chose to do it, and I chose to do in the crap situation I now find myself in and I'm trying to deal with. You don't have a sense like that. But if you do get out far enough, you realize that you're just playing in this kind of computer simulation. There's not a computer, but it's similar to one. And you realize not only did you choose to do it, but you're actively choosing to carry on being in it. And now comes the point, because you're asking about how do you alter it. You will find that the life you're experiencing is way more interesting than you gave it credence right now. You might have thought it was a bit boring and you wanted to escape, but it's way more interesting than you realize. And if you wanted to change it, you've got to come up with something even more interesting and dynamic. Because if you just fiddle with it, it tends to snap back to the one it was. But if you can come up with something more interesting, you can change the experience you're having. What do you make of these concepts as I thrash them out at you?
Yeah, do you know, it's funny that you say that because I have a virtual reality headset, and you know, you put this stupid thing on, and you're looking around, and you're going, oh wow, there's a bird. Wow, this thing's amazing. Wow, there's a tree, and you go like, then you take the fucking thing off, and you're just like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? It's like it's amazing because it's in virtual reality, but you have it all here anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's far more amazing outside within this reality, I suppose. Are there ways to verify that this is an illusion, David?
Explain a bit more, elaborate on that point.
Like, are there ways for us to confirm? Like, a lot of people will say, we're not in a computer simulation. You're living in a fantasy. You've watched The Matrix too many times, you know. Um, so would there be a way for you to prove to a skeptic that this is in fact a simulation?
How would you prove? Well, as I was describing earlier, when you get to meet your own kids before they're ever born, when you get an enormous amount of guidance on doing this, and also in the job I'm a bit like a flying instructor. So if you went out of Dublin and found a little airfield and a small plane on it, and there's a flying instructor who says, let's go up in that aircraft together, and we're going to fly around and we're going to do a few maneuvers. I'm like the instructor guy who helps teach you how to fly that aircraft. And when an instructor goes up with his pupil and you look out the window, well, one will be on one side of the aircraft, one will be on the other, but you'll mostly see the same things and you can compare note. And when you've done thousands of practice astral flights with people and take them through, and you see the same things and describe the same stuff, it's quite obvious that you can do it.
Mm.
When it comes down to things on Earth about what would someone consider proof, if you sit with someone and you start taking them through this, they get quite a shock when you're getting into it about how you're able to get them to notice what they were thinking before they've even described it. So you're able to give people insights into their own minds as it's happening, and then they see it for themselves. In terms of things that I've done in practice, as I was describing, meeting my children before they were born, and also the experience of the children showing me who their mother was going to be. That was quite fun because their mother was a nice looking girl, but unfortunately not the nice Irish girl I was going out with at the time in Dublin.
I hope you didn't tell that girlfriend that.
She doesn't come round with a big knife to murder me for this, but we ended up in a strange situation that I could see who I was likely to get married to. And there was the mother of my children, not the girl I'm with. And I was wondering what to do next. And the sense of it was, well, if I said to the nice Irish girl I was engaged to, I want us to be together all the time and live together. I said, if you do that, the relationship will split up because obviously I'm a really rubbish person to live with and would drive everyone absolutely mad. So she didn't actually, in the event, want to live with me all the time. She wanted to stay in her own orbit, her own sphere. So I was wondering what was happening next, and I was wondering, well, okay, so I'm not with the nice Irish girl, and now I'm all on my own. When is the wife to be coming in? And I could see an energetic connection in time, so I could see the weekend when we'd be getting together. And I was presented with a choice of one woman who did not look like the vision of the wife to be. So I
So
thought,
you didn't
well,
recognize her?
yeah, there's one woman here.
Mm.
Okay, there's no other women, and this is the so there must be the right one. So I said, okay, love, well, come home, back to my flat. Here are the keys. Move in. There's the bed. Hop in and don't delay getting undressed for too long because it's a bit cold. I haven't got the heating on.
Very good.
You're a charmer, David.
There we go. We like to give the velvet tongue. So I did that, and a few days into the relationship, she started to settle down. She tore out a little picture from a magazine and slapped it up beside the bathroom mirror. And she said, I want to be like this. And it was a picture of a woman who looked like the vision of mother of my children. So I thought, well, that's
Well,
fantastic. She wants to be like that. I know a lot about how you help people change for the better. We're all heading in the same direction. And over the next few months, she transformed herself and started to look like the vision of wife to be.
Wow.
And as one person put it at our wedding, who'd done flying things with me, they'd all met the vision of wife to be. They'd seen her. They'd got a sense how was going to come from a former Eastern European country from behind the Iron Curtain. I used to wonder whether she'd be Polish or something like that, but it turned out she was Hungarian. So he got together with her. Everyone knew she was coming. They knew what she was going to look like, and there she was on the wedding day. In the form that was expected. So when you're talking about what's the proof of things like that, you just get little bits, pieces, time after time after time. And after a while, you realize that is the greater reality. It's there and anyone can do it. So it doesn't happen in one big day, a major proof. It just happens in one piece after another. The evidence accumulates and becomes insurmountable.
and it was a huge thing back in ancient cultures as well, you know. You would have the shaman that would be engaging the community in these practices where they'd be engaging with psychedelic substances and they'd be entering these, as we call it today, these astral planes, and they'd be meeting these spiritual beings. But we've moved away from that to a more materialistic existence.
Well, just mentioning the psychedelics and the whole thing of astral projection, I was taught how to do it by beings that don't really live here. I didn't go to some Tibetan monastery out in the far thing. It was done in this world. And to explain it again, I was channeling the training. I was being told what to do, shown what to do next, passing it on to others. And I was sitting in on the training lessons. So that's how I learned. And when you're talking about the psychedelic side of it, a thing to remember is you're doing it kind of unguided. It's about like you've gone to that airfield and now you're trying to fly the aircraft on your own without an instructor. And you get all kinds of weird results, bump into things and have crashes that would not otherwise have happened. So that's the side of that one. And that's the difference between working when you're guided and working unguided. Because unguided, you might meet a guide somewhere in your, but it's essentially without that kind of assistance. In terms of the materialistic side of this, we've come here to have the material life, to experience being right in the midst of it. And when, for example, you look in people's previous incarnations on Earth, you'll very often find things along the lines of living in a Tibetan monastery somewhere as a monk with your head shaven and practicing your meditation on the bamboo mat every day. And from there, you'd have probably been looking into future lifetimes and say, hey, well, in a future lifetime, I'm going to quit the monastery. I'm going to go and live as a married man in Ireland, go and settle down, have a family, do the whole thing, yet still with that spiritual connection. So you'd be actually going to experience the material life and making the most of it. Can you still do your amazing skills in one of these sorts of lives? I mean, how are you getting on with it, guys?
Yeah, me personally, I've actually started looking into for the last couple of years Thomas Campbell and his work. So he was an engineer, very similar to you actually. And you know, in terms of that background, and he was working with NASA as well, doing some projects, I think. And that story that he tells of him being part of a project where they had to figure out why their rocket kept on blowing up.
Oh, God.
And it ended up that they were constantly hitting birds, and it was the bird that was causing the issue.
Oh,
But
God.
yeah. So, but his whole thing of exactly what you said there, he didn't engage with any psychedelics, and he's never touched a drug in his life, but he has engaged in teachings through other people and guides. It's guided meditation, and he's done it countless times. He's met these other beings that he calls beings, but he doesn't call them extraterrestrials. He thinks that it's consciousness that puts an avatar on this messenger, and
Yeah.
this messenger is your guide.
Yeah.
So it's all determined on your own psyche, in a sense.
Well, let's look at that side of it a bit more, because I've certainly bumped into plenty of beings you'd call aliens. Just to throw a bit of context in this, imagine that you lived somewhere on a little Aran island somewhere, making the best sheep's wool jumpers known to mankind. And that was your life, and you lived on the Aran island, and you didn't travel much, and everyone who didn't live on the Aran island you'd call an alien being. So you, the Aran Island, you and your special body, and everyone else, the entire rest of the universe, were aliens. That is more or less how humans see themselves right now. That they're some special being and everything else is an alien, which is a really weird concept when you look at that. It's like, how on earth did you come up with that idea?
Yeah.
The next thing you mentioned were the avatars, and I was describing it in a different way. I was saying it's like personalities in something like a computer game, and they exist in parallel versions in multiple forms. So there's more than one of you guys, and anyone can play the character. So there are these avatars, and there are avatars on alien worlds. And if you want to visit an alien world, one of the tips is to become a light being, become a nothingness, and then land in the avatars of one of those alien bodies. And when you do that, you get all sorts of weird and wacky experiences. You suddenly have a different number of fingers or a different number of arms sticking out at the side of you. You sometimes breathe differently. You'll notice a lot of the avatars on alien worlds are what we would understand as highly evolved insect bodies. And that's why when you see aliens showing up or not, some of them have strange forms. They are essentially evolutions of things very similar to an insect body.
Yeah.
And these are different avatars, and they exist at different levels and dimensions, and ultimately they start to get very non-physical and really have no substance at all to them. And finally, we'll get into the sort of oneness energy, where, as I said earlier, we're different extensions of the same ultimate one being. So
how does when you're on the astral plane, how does that affect time? Do you ever feel like you're gone for a very long time?
Now, time's an odd one in this respect. And our brains that we're experiencing right now are programmed to assist with the generation of time. As you go up higher into the astral world, time starts to fade out. And you also end up having strange relationships with guides in this way. That I was chatting to a guidance friend last night, and I said, "How are you doing today?" And the guide was putting it to me. He said, "Well, actually, it's not a new day since you last looked in. For you, it's yesterday. For me, it's equivalent of a few minutes later. You're down in your world generating loads of time. So you've been in your world through 24 hours. And in my world, it's equivalent of about a minute and a half."
Nice.
So when you're talking about the generation of time, it's localized to the experience you're in and manifesting. I mean, what have you heard about this before? Because it's a rather bizarre subject for most people to try and get their heads around until they've encountered it.
Yeah, I haven't heard much about it. I've never experienced astral projection myself, but I've imagined that it would make your life feel like it's much longer. I mean, if most people, they go to bed, they sleep for 8 hours, they don't remember their dreams, and they get up and they're losing a third of their life. Whereas someone like yourself maybe is experiencing a lot more out of their life by being able to do this and by being able to experience these different realities and planes of existence.
Well, not only me, but the people around me. For example, my lovely wife, she can remember being married to me on similar worlds to the Earth, but not obviously not in this one. And sometimes I've had the complaint from her that she'd talk about other relationships she's had and say they were better. You were a better husband in that lifetime. You got to bring the standard up in this lifetime.
Gosh.
You got to do better, David.
Yeah, you got to.
And what's your thoughts then on regression hypnosis and people being able to go back in and remember past life experiences on Earth?
Well, you're just literally doing a bit of an out-of-body experience with someone talking you through it. And as you come out of your human consciousness a little bit, you can start to connect to other earthly lifetimes. It's as simple and straightforward as that. And that was some of the early area where I tried to get some skill at this. I'd lie on my bed and I think, could I remember anything from another lifetime? And my first success on this was remembering something sort of smashing across the front of my head. And then it was lights out. And I got out of bed. I said, what on earth was that? And now, for about the next 10 years afterwards, every time something came near the front of my head, I flinched. Because what I'd accidentally done is picked up a memory of dying, probably some kind of sword or axe fight. So if someone had taken an axe or a sword to my head and sliced off the top of my head from roughly here, that's what I'd managed to remember. And I brought the memories of that into the present, and now I had a flinch that took years to get over. So that's because I'd done it a bit of an uncontrolled way. But if I'd done it in a more sort of modern, smoother way, I'd have packaged out the whole thing and had an easier time of it. So I wouldn't have ended up with that flinching reaction. So yes, you can do that, and a hypnotist can take you through it. But equally, when you learn the skills and you practice these sorts of things, it becomes second nature.
Yeah, John, I think we talked about this before. There was a story, I think it was, I might be misremembering now, I think it was Switzerland, and it was a story about a child who suddenly started telling his family that he remembered his last life, and he remembered that he'd been murdered. And he was able to bring his family. He was claiming that he had lived in a town nearby, and he brought his family to where the body was buried, and they found the remains in a wooded area.
Yeah.
And it's for a lot of people. I kind of understand. For a lot of people, it's difficult to believe. They think that these stories are just made up, but the world is far more interesting than we think, I think.
There's a lot more to it, and I think if you do it in a balanced way, by learning how to connect out into the other world, you then begin to get more of an appreciation as to why you're actually living this lifetime and what you're trying to accomplish in this lifetime. And I'll give you another example I encountered when I mentioned there's parallel versions of ourselves. I sometimes call, you can see a parallel plus version who's doing really well. They generally live in a better house. They're having a really good time. And then if you look in the other direction, you can find a parallel minus version who's not done so well. Maybe they're having a really crap lifetime and things like that. Ironically, you'll find looking at the parallel minus one is a lot easier than looking at the parallel plus one, because he's an annoying bugger to connect to. He's just got everything better organized. And I have met my parallel plus version. I know, yeah, he's got the bigger house. He's got a swimming pool outside. He walks around. His wife looks a little bit happier and calmer with him in that one. Same wife, same kids. And then I'd say to him, well, I feel like I'm not doing well enough here. And the parallel plus version would say, no, you're living in an interesting experiment. You're doing something that's actually a bit more challenging. So don't look down on yourself. Actually put a bit more confidence in what you're up to. Don't worry about it, because you're playing a different permutation right now. And make the most of it. Make the most of this earthly lifetime. Excel at it as far as you can.
Well, I think I'm in my parallel minus right now, to be honest. I could go for the pool and the easier life and a happier wife for sure.
um, I When you say that you'll be meeting your parallel selves, do these parallel selves have to have, we'll call it ability, the same kind of ability as yourself? Would there be an existing parallels to David that exist that don't have this ability that you mightn't be
Yeah.
able to meet until they get that ability?
When you go up and out, you realize there's a vast number of them, and some of them are really, really close to you. And I'll give you an example about what some of this can be like. I live in a nice London apartment block. It's on an island, and it's got little balconies, and you look out over the canals and a little weir. Very nice. And one day I was doing a bit of carpentry. I wanted to saw through some wood. So I went out on the balcony and was getting ready to cut through all the wood. And at that moment, I got a sense that there was a parallel version of me who had already been out the balcony, sawed through all the wood, which was going to take about half an hour of cutting very carefully, do a nice job, don't do wobbly lines. And there was, as a result of it, a slight irritated sense that I was about to have to repeat everything he'd just done. It's like I'd already done this. I'd done my half an hour cutting and it was finished. And now in this one, I was going to have to do the same thing all over again because that parallel version of me had started half an hour earlier. So you start to get weird little overlaps like that where you begin to see things that are just on the margins. It's a fun world to experience, but also kind of annoying when you pick up some of the tiresomeness of having to repeat stuff.
Yeah.
What was your first experience, David? Would say not only just meeting your own parallel selves, but your first off this world experience, as in another planet.
Well, once I realized that you could start to go to other planets, and I'd put it, once the thought was dropped into my head that I was up to doing it, then the guiding spirit started to take me on little journeys and get me to experience different things. And they had to teach me how to do it because there's a lot of technique to it. It's really about learning practical techniques about how you breathe, how you stabilize your energies. Because the vibrational energies of a human avatar, as you called it, a human vessel or illusion is another way of putting it, that's different to some of the bodies on more alien worlds, and you need to be able to synchronize with those worlds. And I find when I'm teaching people how to do this, it's not hard to get them to experience a bit of an alien world, but the vibration is literally so alien to them, it snaps them back quite fast. So they tend to do it for a very short of time, space of time. They go, God, did I imagine it, or what happened? They wonder. But in fact, they've done it, but very briefly, and then you just need to take them through again and again, and you repeat the process until they learn to stabilize. So when was my first experience of that? Well, I can't remember. Somewhere back around the 1990s, I'd been getting taught how to do that, and I'd start to pick up the memories of it. And as I said, it happened in little pieces, never an amazing jump in one day. It was always little pieces, one step after another. Not like, who was it? Eckhart Tolle, I think, mainly. Who's that guy? Eckhart.
Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, he sits with his eyes shut and talks to him. I mean, his story was he got massively depressed, and there was a huge burst of light came into the room one day, and he felt happy again. On my path, nothing like that. Much more mundane. One little step after another.
When it comes to, I suppose, testimony about near-death experiences, do you see a parallel or a crossover then with astral projection as well? Is that what's happening to them?
Oh, okay. Well, the thing about near-death experience, when you're getting close to death, there are a few possibilities as to what's going on. And when I was doing my early astral projections, I managed to give myself an experience of what it would be like to get close to death without actually killing myself. And on this particular occasion, I was doing the heavy astral projections before my guides had really got through and taught me how to do it better. I was doing a heavy astral projection, And having practiced a few of these ones, when I finally come back to my body, I thought, can I try one last time? And as I tried to peel myself out of the body, I was getting freezing cold. It was like someone had stuck me in the freezer. And it just was just too unpleasant to go any further. So I gave up for the day, but I still felt a lingering cold that I couldn't shift. So I wanted to know, well, what did I do? I go and have a bath. So I sat in a hot bath and I made it as hot as I could, and I was still cold inside. And when you're talking about people getting close to death, they often report the experience of I'm getting cold inside. I'm freezing from the inside out. And here I was experiencing it in a hot bath, but I clearly wasn't about to die. And I finally thought, well, I messed something up. So I sent out the thought to the guidance team, even though I didn't have a great connect at the time. Sent out the thought, what have I cocked up now? I've messed something up. And the thought was dropped back to me, which translates roughly to, you idiot, you've left a lot of your spirit body out there in the astral. You haven't recovered it all properly. And that's why you're feeling cold, because you've gotten to a sort of close to death experience. And that's why you feel so cold. And then I thought, what do I do next? And the thought was dropped into my head, ask your higher self to put you back together again. Put the idiot Humpty Dumpty back together again. Put his shell back together. So, all right, okay, higher self, reform me. And in a moment, all the energy came back. And then I found myself in a roasting hot bath where I needed to reach for the cold tap because I was now way too hot, having been dabbling as what it was like to get close to death.
Wow.
So you had a bit of that. Also, another one to mention was, you may not realize, but in our parallel, we didn't all get nuked. There is a parallel version of us where we did get blown up in our entirety. And most of the parallel versions of me that went down that route died, but one guy lived. And I managed to find him. And a few years ago, suddenly he was coming through to me and comparing notes. And he was living in Ireland. He spoke with more of an Irish accent than I do now. Had the same wife and children. They'd somehow managed to meet up and live in Ireland. And I was struck by how they all spoke with an Irish accent. And what was going on was he was getting close to death. So a parallel version of me was about 6 months away from dying at that point from various of cancers and problems of living in a nuclear Armageddon, but having survived it for, well, the better part of 40 years at that point. So he's living in a post-apocalyptic world. And he came back to me and he was looking in on me and I was looking in on him, and we'd hung out together. And because he was getting close to death, but had had less training in these spiritual things, that close to death experience made it possible for him to come and visit me. So I got to say hello to him and then wave him off when he was doing a bit of passing over.
Right. Crazy.
Have you tried any remote viewing experiments yourself, David?
Sorry, the screen froze for a moment, so the beginning of what you're saying got knocked out at my end.
No worries. In terms of, let's say, remote viewing, have you had much experience or have you experimented much with that?
I find it tricky to do myself, and I'm not the best of it, but there are other people who do it a little bit better than me. To do remote viewing, you've got to come up out of your body. But then if you're trying to do it on an earthly level, you've got to reform enough of a vehicle somewhere to go and be able to see. Because one of the bizarre things that happens to us is you're used to seeing with your physical eyes. And when you leave your body, you don't have physical eyes anymore. So, for example, from a guiding spirit's perspective, they can't physically see the world we're in properly unless we show them a picture of what we can see. They see an energetic world. So when I do things like remote viewing, I find I could often pick up things energetically, but my physical vision wouldn't be as crystal clear as I like. So I've got some abilities in that area, but not quite as sharp as you think. And that's why, because I haven't got the knack of forming a full physical avatar somewhere else and showing up as a complete ghost that can see properly. It's a tricky one to do.
Yeah, it's like anything. Like you'd often hear, going back again to Thomas Campbell, who has been trying that for many years. He said it's one of them things, practice. It's something that myself and Niall are looking at. We'll try and get into as well. Between lucid dream and now astral projection and remote viewing, we'll
Well,
be kept busy.
there's a lot further you can get than lucid dreaming. All I can say that. And to explain the tips on how is it done, think of it. You've got an energy system that flows, and most of the time our energy system is stalled. It's frozen. And I liken this to an episode of Star Wars. I think that let's see. I think what did they count them? Was it episode 4 or 5 or something like that? But you might remember the character Han Solo, the pilot of the Millennium Falcon. Do you remember him?
I do, of course.
And then in The Empire Strikes Back, he got taken prisoner and he got frozen. They called it the carbon freeze, and he got turned into a wall mural looking like this, going, ah. Now, we have kind of frozen our energy systems where we're generating loads of time. So when a guiding spirit looks in, we've cleared off and going having loads of time. But we've kind of frozen the energy system. We're in a weird little sort of loop where we're going round and round like we're in a strange dream. If you want to get up and out of body, just restart the energy system. You restart it, you'll feel it start to flow. And when you've got it flowing, you then become the energy flow, because that's what you ultimately are. You are that inner energy that's powering your body. And you're up and out. And from there, you can start to play with things and start to change things. And when you do that, you're easily out of the lucid dream world. And you go up into a level where you start to hang out with the friends who are helping create and design the earthly illusion you're now in. I hope that makes some sense.
Well, I hope we can figure it out someday, John, because I would love to experience this.
Well, it's technically, I teach people day after day. I mean, in about half an hour, a lovely young woman will be coming by and I'll be practicing that with her. So it's a simple enough exercise to do. And if you ever want to do that, that's what I get up to. I just teach people how to switch it on. It's like you've gone into a room with a load of light switches, and I teach you just how to switch on the switches, where you find them, how to pick them up, notice the relationship between what your mind's doing and what's happening next. And I give you like if you've ever looked in the cockpit of an aircraft before it takes off, the pilots are there doing lots of little checks and starting up the systems. That's more or less what it's like. You've just got various systems you need to switch on, get them up and running, check they're all working properly. And when you do that, you turn into your normal light being self, and you're up and out. It's really not that difficult.
Is it something that you do every night?
I do it regularly during the day, showing people how to do it, often playing with it, sometimes playing with the sort of energy. So it's like switching vision from one type of vision to another. So you might switch on some clairvoyant vision. So when we're switching on clairvoyant, and looking at you now, you're someone who's endlessly changing his aura. You don't like being stuck in one particular energetic state too much of the time. So you see endless doing that. When it looks a bit heavy and grey, you really hate that too, because you know you can do better. So you're someone who likes playing that, and you also like synchronizing with people's vibrations, but not getting too caught up in the thoughts in the end. You like to dabble in it, but you're playing a game with that one. And when we come to you, John, one of the things about your aura is you really like getting in a sympathetic aura where you're really well connected with people, where you're blending with them. And one of the big challenges for you is who the hell you're hanging out with, because the quality of your company you're keeping is having quite an impact on your state of being. So you have to then hang out with really interesting, fun, connected people just to stay sane. So to give you some of the examples of the colours on that one, the two of you quite like sitting out in blue colours. Niall, you're a secret mediumistic astral traveler version in particular, you really want to be able to do it. You're just afraid that you might get your mind messed up in the process. So you carry an extra bit of purple in that one. Whereas you don't, you kind of know you can do this, and you're less worried about messing up your mind. You just wish it was a bit easier. So when we're looking at these energies around you, both of you inherently realize you're something more than humans, and that's demonstrated by a nice column of white light coming through the tops of your head that you do regularly reach into and connect to. So that means I can have a conversation with you on these subjects and you won't get too scared. Whereas by comparison, if you're reading the auras of some other people, they're in a sort of very closed off aura where they literally look like they've shut a lid or hatch on the top of their head. And you can't explain too much to them. And to give you a little bit of a story, one day there's a newspaper seller I used to go past and buy a copy of the London Evening Standard. And eventually, one day he said, "I've never asked you, what do you do?" And I looked at his aura and I thought, there's no way he'll understand. But we'll just play through it anyway. So I did describe it to him. And he looked completely blank and never asked me that question again. So
Wow.
different people have different energetic setups, and you can read them and do this, which is kind of useful.
It's amazing.
Very interesting. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, David, we'd love to get you on again because there's many things that we could talk about, and I know it's hard to kind of get it all in there in the hour. If you'd like to come on down the line, we'd only be delighted to have you on.
Well, come on, we're happy to do that. Come on down the line. And what we could also is get into the subject of just giving people a little bit of a talk through how you get the human energy system up and working, because it's all completely tangible when you do it properly. And I want to emphasize this point. When people are, for example, doing guided meditations, they're often playing out in their imagination and it's not that tangible. But when you're really flowing your energy system nicely, it's rather like when you're climbing on an aircraft. You can tell if that aircraft is flying or if it's sitting on the ground. It's quite obvious.
Yeah.
And once you just learn to feel all these things, it becomes very straightforward. And that's why I say an engineering pragmatic background is useful in this, because we're looking out for what's tangible, what's affecting what, how do all the systems hook in together, and how you control them on a practical day-to-day basis.
Brilliant.
Yeah, lovely, lovely. David, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm going to be in a good mood now for the rest of the day. You've set me up.
Okay, and I hope I've not just battered you with bits
No,
and
absolutely
pieces
not.
here.
I know, we loved it.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing. So, yeah, John is the expert. You wouldn't think so now, getting stuck in traffic and all that, but John's the guy who reaches out to everybody.
Rookie.
So I'm sure he'll be on to you in a few months, and maybe we'll get you on before the end of the year or something again.
100%.
Well, be happy to do that. It's lovely saying hello to you guys, and thank you also for putting out the words, because the work you do helps spread the word to other people. We're on a planet where the education system in this respect is brutally bad. Kids are not taught at school about their human energy system, about the emotional flows they're going through, about the connections they already have with everyone around them. They're taught to operate very much as individuals, and then you spend years being taught how to focus on passing an exam, which makes it even harder to do this kind of work. They don't get these kind of basic life skills in their education system. So what you do is an amazingly useful remedial class. So I congratulate you on going out there and putting out the good word to people. Thank you for doing that.
Well,
Cheers,
thank you very
David.
much, David. That's very kind.
Well, I'm a teacher myself. I'm an engineering teacher, and I see a lot within the classroom. It's just exams, summative assessments, telling kids to stop talking. You know, it's just that whole, like, is that really it? Is that how we educate ourselves? You know, I think something has to change. And I suppose the more so, as you said it there, that people hear that there's other things to life than that, what the mundane, what we're going through, the better, and things might start to change.
So there's a lot more to this world, and once you realize you've dropped in to your little illusory body, the avatar as you referred to it earlier, then you realize you can play with it and you can have some fun with it and really start to look around.
David, where's the best place to get your books? And it's through the apps. A website is the best place to contact you, is it?
Okay, so we've got a website, the name of the website of greatsimulator.com, because it's picking up on how we are in a simulation. That you've gone on the website, you'll find my book, you'll find some training courses, and equally for people who go on Amazon, if you have a look on that, you'll find my books available on Amazon as a digital download for your Amazon book reader, or you can get a physical copy. And Amazon are a great company now in that they physically will print you a bespoke copy for you, a one-off, and send it to you wherever you are in the world. So we're now in a situation where you can connect up wherever you are. It's a really great place to be, where we've got spiritual evolution, technological improvements, all combining in together to make a really good scenario.
Lovely.
It's brilliant. David, thanks a million again. Have a great week for yourself, and we'll get in touch again very shortly, hopefully.
Okay. Thank you again, gentlemen.
Thank you, David.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, David.
Take it
Take care
easy.
of
Bye.
yourself.
Bye.